The FDA has formed a task force to focus on nanotechnology, specifically the use of nanomaterials in drugs, medical instruments, and other products that the agency regulates. Dr. Scott Gottlieb, the agency's Deputy Commissioner for Medical and Scientific Affairs, is our guest host this morning. You guys, you don't have enough stuff to do. You might as well form a task force on this small little area. Did you hire any new people for it, or is it like they do around here? You just give additional duties to everyone?
Well, what we need to do, what we're doing with this task force, is taking a look across the agency to see if we think that our regulatory approaches, our current authorities, as well as the scientific tools that we have, are sufficient to look at these new technologies. And I think in most cases we feel they are. I don't want to prejudge the outcome of the task force, but we are really confident that we have good authorities and good scientific tools to look at this. There are some exceptions. For example, OTC drugs, over-the-counter drugs, might be one exception where we need to think about a potentially new approach.
Wow.
Ignore that.
I don't know really what that was, but did you notice, like Robert Duvall, I didn't even move on that.
I did. I jumped out of my skin.
In a pocket, there's bombs around him. I love the smell of napalm. It seems like skin cream is one, or, a tanning lotion with nano is one thing, all right? But if you're going to go in and intervene in molecular processes with a nanoparticle, it seems like it might be more than, a simple yes or no of whether it's safe or not. No?
Well, we have the authority to ask for additional information. The question becomes, are we asking for the right information with respect to a nanoparticle? And that requires us to understand what the potential problems could be with nanoparticles. For example, we look at toxicity in terms of the molecular weight of a product or the concentration. With nanoparticles, you might have to look at toxicity levels in terms of the surface area that the nanoparticles occupy if we couldn't correlate surface area well with the concentration. So there are some questions here, but it's not a question of whether or not we have adequate authorities to be asking these questions. We think we do.
You have the authority, but do you have the expertise?
We think in most cases we do. There are cases where we do want to do some additional scientific work. For example, looking at whether nanoparticles penetrate the skin if they're using a topical lotion. We don't think they do. We've done some studies to look at that, but additional scientific work can certainly help us put that question to bed.
They could pass a blood-brain barrier. Can they? I mean, what about prions? This is like...
It's scary
This
stuff.
gets pretty scary, doesn't it?
Well, I think, like anything else, if you try to think downstream of all the potential, problems that could or would...
We want to think now before later, don't we?
We don't regulate in this country by a precautionary principle. I mean, we regulate according to science, and right now the science doesn't indicate that there are risks that we can't contemplate and look at effectively with the tools that we have.
Let's talk about sort of where the nanotech industry comes to this issue with Mark Modzelewski, VP of Strategic Opportunities for Nanodynamics. Does the FDA have the right to do this?
Absolutely, and in general, the industry is pretty welcoming of this, and the industry has actually been at the forefront, mainly due to perceptual issues, of trying to push for additional study and additional examination of the field. In fact, Nano Business Alliance pushed for 10% of the NNI budget, the National Nanotechnology budget, to go for EHS.
So is the view that it legitimizes the industry where it hasn't been before, or what?
It lets them plan. It lets them be able to understand where things are going. It's certainly very much appreciated by the larger corporate members out there that are working on nanotech. Startups, kind of a mixed bag.
Why is that? Why would a smaller firm not be as welcoming?
Corporations like things like roadmaps. They like things like regulation that they can understand, because it lets them plan product cycles. They control the means of getting it to be exactly. Whereas startups who have some innovation in there may not be going that route.
Mark, nano pants are one thing. I get that. That makes a lot of sense to me. The nano golf balls I get, but I got to tell you, in my sunscreen, it starts to concern me. It starts to concern me. And Doctor, we were just talking off camera. You mentioned that we don't know what happens if you have a cut and you put it on over a cut.
That's right. I mean, with OTC drugs, as I mentioned, that might be one area where we need to take a close look. We regulate over-the-counter drugs by two mechanisms, either a new drug approval process or what we call a monograph. And a monograph is basically a recipe that lays out what needs to be in the over-the-counter drug for us to approve it. That's an oversimplification. I hope the commissioner's not watching right now. But the monographs right now for sunscreen, for example, don't include nanoparticles. So the question becomes, if there are some unique properties, do we need to rewrite the monograph or do a bridging study to account for that?
Mark, what do you think? Should I be concerned?
I don't think at this point you should be concerned. However, in a larger way, these things need to be answered for people to feel comfortable with them. And I think that's the real issue. There are so many issues also to conquer, like is it a drug or is it a device? If you're using, say, a nanoparticle to burn out a cancer cell using other methodology like gold nanoshells, which we've talked about before here, is that a drug? Is it a device? How is it going to be regulated? How is it going to be understood?
Yeah,
exactly. It's very difficult. Then when you look at nanoparticles, yeah. But when you look at it in the larger sense, is FDA going to be in charge of the trucking industry? Because every 18-wheeler that goes down the road is spitting out nanoparticles. Every tree
Wait a second.
is spitting out nanoparticles.
You just said this is good for the industry.
Yeah.
Now it sounds like maybe not.
It's how, but where are they going to draw the line? How are they going to conceptualize it? It's a very big thing to try and talk about. That's it. It's not a matter of can they, should they. They should, and they can. But how? And I think that's why they're
walk us through, beyond the topical lotions and cosmetics, what goods do you think are going to get scrutinized by the FDA?
I think anything that's helping drug delivery and should. I think anything topical. I think wherever you're using skin creams, lotions, I think that certainly should get further scrutiny. I think certain medical devices that are coated, for instance, if you're using particle coatings on a hip replacement, what does that do? How long does that last? How long does it hold on? What are the effects? Those are the things that I think you're going to see it, and those are, frankly, entering the market right now. Wow. So,
but those are questions we would routinely ask and answer in the context of whether it's a nanoparticle or not. So we're already asking those kinds of questions.
And whether it's a novel nanoparticle, the trucks are spewing stuff that we know about, but there's going to be novel nanoparticles that the immune system has never seen, that have never been seen on this planet.
Yeah, and if it tweaked one way at the exact same size, it does one thing. It tweaked another way, it does something. It does something completely different. We talked about a soda can.
Andromeda strain.
This is totally Terminator.
Andromeda strain.
Yeah.
We could run hard, run fast. I'm worried. I got to talk to you about that. Are you not worried?
Huh? Am I not worried?
This is Andromeda strain stuff. I hope you are. You're in a position to save humanity.
Save the world.
I'm going to get skin cancer from lack of sunscreen, probably more so than probably using a product. So.
All right, gentlemen, thanks. You guys are going to be very close friends, I'm sure. Modzelewski.
Are you the task force, by the way? Is it you, or you got?
I am not. It's co-headed by the head of our policy and
how
head
many
of
people you
science.
got?
It's represented by people from across the agencies, probably about 15 people, 20 people on task force.
Doing additional work to what they were already
doing additional work, unfortunately.
But they still go home at 4:30 every day.
That's our model.
Mark, Dr. Gottlieb, thanks.